What's happening, you guys? All right, we are, Wednesday, June 21st? Yeah. Smart ass. Showing me on my monitor what day it is. The monitor for my rear camera is right here telling me what day and time it is.
And he had a brain fart.
Alright, so we are at Love's truck stop right now in Tomsbrook, Virginia. Going to be picking up a load tonight. Pretty short distance from here, not even 15 miles from here. And
15 miles tops.
Yeah, Edinburgh, Virginia. I talked about that in my last video. So you're probably wondering now, who the hell is this guy here?
Like, who is this asshole?
Yeah. So you guys might have seen him before. I actually had a pickup or it was a delivery, wasn't it? In Colton. Yeah, it was a delivery in Colton, and I had talked in that vlog of a delivery in Colton of my good friend Dave being just a few dock doors over from where I was docking in at. So this is Dave, the same guy. I'm gonna introduce you guys to him. He's a real good friend of mine. Let him talk about himself. So Dave, where are you from, and how long you been driving? Who have you driven with? How do we know each other, and all that kind of stuff?
Well, again, my name is David, if Scott hasn't already told you. I live in northeastern North Carolina, specifically Bertie County, which is probably about an hour and a half max from Norfolk, Virginia.
It's what county?
Bertie County.
Huh?
Bertie County. And don't you get me started, because if you try and say it Bertie to some of the locals, we're going to cut your ass out.
Did you say burnt tea?
No, Bertie. B-E-R-T-I-E. He's trying to hijack this part of it, I'm telling you.
You can kind of tell from his accent that he's probably from that part of the country, so.
Asshole. But yeah, I've lived there all my life. I'm 33 years old. I got my commercial driver's license back in mid to late March of 2019. First job I ever had with driving trucks was with Western Express. And don't get me started about that company. That Western Express is a trash company, and I don't care if they see this. I have driven for Western Express both as a company driver and an owner-operator or independent contractor.
Okay, so on that Western Express, did you do drive-in or flatbed?
I only did drive-in. I won't do flatbed. I'm too accident-prone for flatbed.
Okay. Yeah, I had that because Western Express does both of those.
Yes. I had a brief stint with a company in Caseyville, Illinois. That was a subcontractor for Prime. That was back in the latter half of 2019. Went to a company out of Ennis, North Carolina, and if I had no other choice, I would go back to them because they are as far as I'm concerned, they are the best company to drive for in terms of company drivers. And the last time I talked to their safety director, they also have come out with a thing where they're starting to do independent contractors. You have to have your own truck, of course. They don't lease trucks, but they're starting an independent contractor branch. Went back to Western Express after that because I can't do team driving. I prefer my privacy and solitude 90% of the time. Went back to Western Express. That's when I did my stint with them as a lease operator or independent contractor. And after that was the first time I come over to JCT, and I have been with JCT multiple times.
Okay, so that was in 2019 when you came to JCT?
No, very, very early 2020.
Okay.
I actually first time I come over to JCT was the latter half of January of 2020.
Man, it seems like it's been longer than that sometimes. Huh.
But that's when I came over to JCT for the first time, and a couple of months after that, my driver manager then, Shaylin, I can't remember her last name.
Yeah, that was because he had the same DM as me, Shay.
and she was talking to me about getting a mentor, and that is how I started talking to Scott's sarcastic, saucy ass.
All right, so Shay had I don't know, like 50-something trucks on her fleet, and I think she had about 5 or so drivers in her fleet who she usually used as mentors for other drivers in her fleet. And she tried to pair up drivers with who she thought would be the best match for their, I guess, mentoring needs. And she had mentioned she'd asked me if I could mentor him with anything. Not like he really needed help with driving stuff, but it's just the ins and outs of driving for JCT specifically, like our macros or some of our ways of doing things specifically here. That was what it was more about.
Mm-hmm. At that point, when Shay asked me about that, I had already got a good grasp of the trucking industry itself. I mean, it won't perfect. At that point, I had only had just a smidge under a year's worth of experience, which it showed at the time. She kind of mentioned that it was not necessarily to help improve me, it's just kind of get things a little bit more efficient for me, per se.
You would call it seasoning for JCT's way of doing things.
Right.
Really.
I mean, she said that I already had a decent way of doing things. It's just there was a couple of little areas that could be a little more seasoned for how we did things and stuff. Although she didn't put it in those words. So she said she thought me and you would be a good fit, and I'm like, sure, why not? I'm always up for upping my game. Okay,
so if I may interject real quick on that, well, what he's saying here is with where she could tell he had kind of a grasp there. It's some of the things like how you run your shifts, like how, and not just how hard you run your shifts. Yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to run that hard, but how efficiently are you using your brakes? Your 30-minute breaks, are you just keeping them at 30 minutes? Your 10-hour breaks, are you keeping them at 10 hours or for the most part? Where they can trust you that you can get to, what is this guy doing there?
Don't get distracted.
Don't get distracted. Why is he still sitting there unless he hits somebody in the next lane over or something?
It might be somebody trying to come in. I don't know.
Yeah, anyway. All right, there's a truck trying to come out of the fuel line. We're parked right in front of the fuel line. But anyway, yeah, I think that's what kind of how the dynamic goes with DM trying to get a feel for the driver and their habits. Not just that, but also maybe some of their communication habits as well. So that's basically what he's getting to there is had kind of a good grasp already on that. And it was just more of the what you would do specifically at JCT that you wouldn't necessarily be doing at any other trucking company.
And I will, if I may interject on that, that company out of Springfield, Missouri, that I've driven for as well, not Prime Incorporated, but another one of their subcontractors that I actually like. Prime has a way of doing things that, you know how we do our AM and PM reefer checks?
Yes.
Prime does not do that.
Yeah, when I was with Sierra England, they didn't do that either.
And to be honest with you, just between you and me, and I'm sure other people are going to hear this and try and tell that to the company, but at this point, I don't care. The reefer checks, in my honest opinion, if the driver has shown that they know what they're doing and know how to do it efficiently and safely, the reefer checks are not really that necessary.
Okay, I'm going to echo what he says there because I've always thought this was kind of a weird thing that JCT does. I understand the reason for it, though, because they've had problems in the past where drivers are not doing them, and then it turns out their reefer's not set at the right temp or something along that line. Speaking of, we need to start pre-cooling our trailers pretty soon, I guess.
Good point. Almost forgot about that.
Yeah, but yeah, so people would be negligent there, and then they end up having a load get rejected by a customer because it being at the wrong temp or out of range or whatever it was. And so, but I've done reefer before JCT, but didn't do anything like that. It was, but and then We have a loaded call that we're supposed to send out after we're done picking up our load and have skilled out and skilled legal. Now, there's a macro we send in to send our loaded. It tells right there what temper our bills are, our BOL actually says we're supposed to be at, and then what temp we're actually running at, because there are a lot of cases where JCT actually wants us to run at a slightly different temp than what the BOL says. Good example, those Walmart loads out of Colton. Walmart always wants them at 34, but JCT always runs them at 35. The last load I just did, I delivered, was that cheese load? Yeah, Saputo cheese load. Saputo wanted that at 34, but JCT wanted me to run at 33. It's, they have their little reasons for it, but it's little nuances with JCT's way of doing it. But yeah, the reefer, the Mac ones, I'm not such a big fan of. Now, when I was with Sierra England, back then there was, I think it was also a macro one or something like that, but it was a check call. What we'd call. We didn't say what the temp was that you running your load at, but it was more of a, are you running on time? What is your ETA to the customer that you're going to? And then they would also ask, what is your PTA, or when do you expect to be available for a reload after you're empty? That's what I'd like to see more person. If I had my say, that's how I'd like to see it done in JCT. But yeah, I understand they have their ways of doing things.
And that's the reason why I don't say anything about it. I mean, it's a company, and technically we are running under their authority, so we should have to abide by their policies. So I get that.
Yeah, these are the rules. I'm going to play by them, but doesn't mean that the rules can't change, or we can't. Yeah, it should be okay to voice the thoughts on, how can we improve this process?
Yeah.
Something when I was in the Air Force, it's constantly a thing like, if you don't like the way something's done, all right, come up with a better idea. They're all ears. If you come up with a better way a better mousetrap, whatever, to build them that they can work with more efficiently or more smartly or whatever, they were all for it. But if you couldn't come up with something better, well, status quo.
And the status quo is always going to work. Just when people start refusing to hear things that might improve the status quo, that's when it becomes a little bit of a problem. Especially when those improvements can actually have some real world effect on things.
Okay, so on that note though, because you started talking about JCT. How many times have you been with JCT now?
3 times in the past. Well, no, 3 times in total. This is my 3rd time. Okay,
yeah, so you came to us in 2020?
2020.
And then you went to that company
in Springfield, Missouri. I think it was like late September of 2020. Come back to JCT. And then I went back to that company in Springfield, Missouri. And at that point, that's when I was getting so worked up over everything that I literally needed to take a month or 2 off at home. I mean, come completely off the road, relax, wind down, and get my mind straight, cleared up and all. And I had a local driving job there. Driving I think it was like a 2014 Peterbilt, long nose, looks like a regular old school truck. I only did that for about a week because the truck itself developed some issues where it had been deleted before the guy that I was driving for got it, and it got to the point where it was doing, I can't remember what it was, but it was doing something weird when I would be coasting along at low speed, and when I would actually be stopped getting loaded and stuff, it would actually try and regen the DPF even though there was no DPF on it.
Oh, wow.
So my theory on that is, and the guy that I was driving for pretty much said this, he thought the same thing, that when the DPF was deleted, the people that did the delete didn't program the ECM correctly for that.
That sounds a little bit akin to somebody who's YouTube famous. I don't know, you guys might be familiar with him. I haven't seen any content from him in a while. Josh from This Guy Trucks. There was a while back he had bought a truck that turned out it was deleted, as we call it, or a glider. Where basically the DEF system was bypassed and he didn't know it. And yeah, I remember he had all kinds of problems with that truck because of it. But all right, so trying to keep things moving a little bit here. So how did we get from just me being a guy who was mentoring you to us being good friends?
I think this was that very first time I talked to you. I told you something about myself that most people would consider really personal, and you're like, I don't care. As long as you, and granted I'm paraphrasing this because this was 3 years ago roughly, you said as long as I act like a decent human being and try to be understanding and compassionate with others. I can't remember if you said exactly that, but as long as I was a decent human being, you didn't really care how it was. And I think that if I had to pick a specific point in time where our friendship really got started, I think that would be that point.
I would tend to agree.
So, and ever since then, me and Scott have been talking, and I would honestly have to say Scott here, he's probably the best person that I've met in the past 4 years out on the road. He is a good, honest person. He won't hesitate to call you out on your bullshit if you're pulling bullshit. I mean, legitimately pulling bullshit that you don't need to. He won't hesitate to call you out on it. Trust me, I know. He's done it to me. But
ask anybody in our Facebook group.
Huh?
Ask anybody in our Facebook group.
Right.
I've kind of made a few enemies because of that, and even been blocked by some people because they just. Not everybody can handle my personality. I get it. I'm not trying to be an asshole to people, but
But you are.
I am. It's just my wife even calls me that. So let's just get that out in the open. Let's not try to sugarcoat. It is what it is.
It is. And I think that right there is another reason why me and Scott have developed such a good friendship is in a lot of ways we're different, but also on the flip side of that very same coin, in a lot of ways we are the same. We have a very similar thought process. We're analytical. We look at the fine details of things a lot more than most other people, and sometimes that actually drives other people crazy, but me and Scott seem to understand that.
Man, this guy is like really smart. He downplays himself like I do sometimes. Where like he has that sense of humility. He doesn't want to really think that he is, but no, he's one of the smartest guys I know outside of myself. I'm not trying to toot my own horn there either, because like I said, I usually try to humble myself as well. But that's why I get along with you so well, because we actually have so many like interesting, intelligent discussions. Actually, earlier today, we're both here on 10-hour breaks before we pick up our loads, which I'll talk about later on. Actually, when I do the next video.
Yeah.
So.
And we can probably do that when we get to the pickup if you want.
Yeah.
All right.
But okay, so you guys know I'm retired Air Force. I was an aircraft mechanic. And there were a couple of conversations we had in here this evening before we started doing the video. That like, holy shit, you actually know this jargon? I'm not used to hearing that from somebody who doesn't work on airplanes. We talked about jet engines and axial flow versus centrifugal flow compressors. I'm not going to get into all those details of it here, because you're like, huh? What the hell is that? What's the difference? Or, it's a lot of technical shit there. But hearing it come out of his mouth and he doesn't even work on airplanes is like, holy shit, you actually know that. Wow.
You can actually take a turbocharger off of a car and turn it into a jet motor, because that's the same principle as a centrifugal jet motor.
Or there was the other one you said, you talked about a Schrader valve. And I told him, wait a minute, Schrader valve? How do you know about that? Because Like, man, I worked with Schrader valves all the time on airplanes. Any kind of, like, basically, like, landing gear, shock struts always have Schrader valves. Emergency accumulators and some other stuff all have Schrader valves on them. It's basically just a valve assembly in a way, with a couple of hex nuts on it. One of them you can loosen, like, about, I don't know, a turn or so. Couple of turns, and then once you start turning it more, it'll actually start opening up the valve, so the nitrogen or air, whatever you're trying to put in there, can get in there.
And on that point, and I've definitely noticed this with Schrader valves on the fuel rail of automobiles. When you're servicing the fuel system for whatever reason, you can actually remove the central part of the Schrader valve out like you would a valve stem core out of a valve stem on a tire. Same tool. You use the same tool. You just
true.
Do that.
That is true.
So,
same size and everything. It's just a little bit different in how it operates.
Yep.
So yeah, that's where he surprises me sometimes with some of the, like, I mean, that's why he impresses me, because, like, most people would not have any clue about that stuff if they didn't work in airplanes. He's a history nut too. There's a lot of, like, man, I took history for granted in school until I got in the Air Force and started going to different countries. And I'm like, man, I go to Italy, and, like, there are all these historic places in Rome that I went to. I'm like, I couldn't tell you too much about why each place was so historic until I was actually there. I just didn't give a shit about history. He's, on the other hand, is like a huge history nut.
Amateur history buff will like it.
Yeah, he blows me away with some of his history knowledge. Like, I've gotten more fascinated with history because of, I guess, the epiphanies I've had with my experiences. But yeah, I really wish I would have not taken that for granted, I guess, in my younger years.
And on that same order, if I may interject on this, Scott, from what he's told me, has always had a strong head for numbers, whereas when I was in school, I almost completely hated math. And he's given me a little bit of a different take on math. So, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, each individual has their own little quirks.
All right, so speaking of that with the numbers, I don't think you guys were ever really aware of just how profound my interest in numbers can be. Yeah, one of my friends, John Farber, actually, he used to drive for us. When I did my live streams, he would always call me numbers on the live streams because of this. Or one of my coworkers at the base would call me Rain Man. So it is what it is. But yeah, I had this 26 character long hexadecimal format password that I used for my Wi-Fi network at home, and I can still tell you to this day exactly what it is. Alpha 213 F1322 BE 797 F7735 FA 61789. That is literally what it was. And so I'm like,
Scott's a nerd if you hadn't figured that out by now.
Okay, and it's this photographic memory at work, and I always tell anybody, like, everybody has a photographic memory. It's just most people don't know how to make theirs work for them, or, you know, they don't have the techniques to memorize stuff like I do. If you learn the technique, you can learn it yourself. It's, you know, I just kind of, I taught my daughter that. Yeah, and within an hour, she had it memorized.
Another thing that we've had intelligent conversations on is meteorology.
Oh, speaking of, I'm going to let you talk more about that, but just real quick, when I was at our terminal in Sapulpa on the way out here to Pennsylvania with that last load, I was hanging out with my friend Brian David, or Brian Zadell, and
the resident weather guru for JCT.
Yeah, now Brian, his porn is tornado weather. David's porn is hurricane weather.
Or tropical weather, yes.
So yeah, David, so when I was at the yard, actually Brian was complimenting you on your knowledge of tropical storms or hurricanes and stuff.
Yeah.
Like he was kind of, he's impressed by how much you knew.
And I think that actually comes from where I've lived at all my life. Mainly eastern North Carolina, although central North Carolina, not so much western North Carolina, but eastern North Carolina real specifically. On the East Coast, there's only 2 states that have a really high frequency of direct hurricane hits, whether it's tropical. No matter what the strength of the tropical system it is, there's really only 2 states that really get consistently directly impacted by hurricanes. I mean, in terms of landfall, that's Florida, number 1, because it's basically a big old, what, sticking out into the water. I mean, look at it on the map.
So, I think, if I remember correctly, you said turn it upside down or something, or sideways or whatever.
Yes.
And it looks like, we'll just call it a phallic symbol.
And basically, it's a peninsula surrounded by water on 3 sides, and that right there lends to Florida being the one state on the East Coast that gets the most direct hits. Think about it. A lot of hurricanes coming in, they make a direct impact on Florida to varying degrees.
Yeah, true.
And then North Carolina, the reason why we get the second most, and it really doesn't come quite even close to Florida on Florida's level, but we still get the second most direct strikes in terms of tropical systems. Our coastline juts out from the rest of the coastline in general. And next time, if you want, look at the coastline of North Carolina in comparison to the rest of the East Coast.
I'm picturing, I kind of see, it kind of like bulges out, you would say, a little bit?
Yeah. Yeah, it extends out. And another point is, I think it's like 20 to 50 miles offshore of Cape Hatteras, North Carolina, is where the Gulf Stream is. It literally runs right off our coastline. So that is another reason why we get the second highest number of direct strikes. I can tell you about several different instances where we've had direct hurricane strikes. Most notably, the one in 1999, Hurricane Floyd. There were places in eastern North Carolina that were underwater for 2 weeks straight. Granted, Hurricane Dennis coming in about a month before that, and that in and of itself was a weird storm, because it come in, went out, and repeated that same process 3 different times before it finally went away. That hurricane dropped about a foot of rain on us in a month. Or I would say more like a 2 week time frame. Hurricane Floyd come in and dumped about 2 feet of rain on us in 2 days. So when Hurricane Floyd come in, the ground was already saturated, and when Floyd dumped all that rain on us, it was just
that's a lot.
It was just a goner.
All right, so one of the other things that David and I guess have a lot of chemistry on is the humor. We're both very smart-ass, sarcastic type of humor, I would say.
Yeah, I know, bitch.
So yeah, that's another way we've always gotten along so well. It's yeah, he's like one of my best friends here in trucking since I met him.
So I'm not a best friend in general?
No.
Well, kiss my ass.
You're like chopped liver. I told you about that sarcasm. Yeah. Okay. So in July, my wife and I are going to be going to a comedy gig, actually the Comedy Store in Hollywood for Brad Williams' gig. We bought a VIP table that seats 4. Guess who the first person outside of my wife and I we thought about?
Not this asshole.
Yeah. He's not being sarcastic.
Well, I know I'm an asshole. You can't tell me any different.
So yeah, that's how close we've gotten. It's it was just kind of coincidence we ended up out here. Probably talk about that on the next video, because this is going to be way too much content to add to my pickup video. So I'm going to do a separate video for the pickup, and we'll talk some more on that about what's going on, what he's got going on, what I have going on. Probably where you came from the Philadelphia area.
Yeah. And don't get me started about the traffic between Baltimore and the opposite side of DC.
Okay, so speaking of, my buddy Anthony Griffo, who watches the channel, I actually met him through Scotty D, who used to drive for JCT. I don't know if...
I think I remember him. I just don't know if I've met him.
Okay, yeah, he's got a much bigger YouTube channel than I have. And actually, I just met up with Scotty in Washington shortly before doing this load. Actually, the last load before the one I just delivered. When I was, before I made that delivery in Grandview, Washington, I met up with him and Prosser at the Loves. And, yeah, he had posted a picture of us on Facebook, too.
Okay.
So, but, yeah, okay, so Anthony... he and I are friends, but through Scotty. Anthony actually lives in New Jersey, but in the Philadelphia area of New Jersey, and
kind of close around Trenton.
No, more like not far from Philadelphia, but in New Jersey. Anthony, I forget what city you live in, but I know you're over there, not too pretty close. I know he's like south of, or not too far away from like where the TA is at off of the New Jersey Turnpike.
I know what you're talking about, because I was actually considering on stopping there for my 34-hour reset, but I'm like, I don't want to deal with the New Jersey idiots.
Okay, well, you guys know, those of you guys who watch my channel a lot know that I'm a big Philadelphia Eagles fan, and Anthony being from that area, he's also a big Philadelphia Eagles fan. A lot of you guys who watch my channel regularly also know him already, so he kind of needs no introduction for a number of you guys, but another pretty sizable number of you guys, I'm sure, are not familiar with them. You'll see him commenting on a lot of my videos too. But yeah, he and I will always talk about like Eagles stuff or Dodgers and Phillies kind of stuff. He's a Phillies fan. I'm a Dodgers fan. We'll talk on Facebook a lot with that kind of stuff. We met up one time even at the Petro up there in New Jersey. Why am I brain farting on the name of that town? I know the town, Anthony. I know you're going to end up saying in the comments, like, yeah, it's such and such.
Matter of fact, I'll look it up for you, because I think I know exactly which one you're talking about, because that's the one I stop at 90%.
Yeah, there's a Petro and a Loves right there, and then a Blue Beacon at the Petro.
Yep, I know exactly which one you're talking about.
Yeah, I ended up even having Anthony on one of my live streams back in the day when I was actually taking a bit of time off there. I think I was a 10-hour break or something, but okay. Anyway, going back to Anthony though, he's gonna be mad that you made a delivery really close to Philly and I didn't.
Just outside of Trenton is where that Petro Loves is.
And especially with the fact I did a 34-hour reset right there in Carlisle. Had I done it over there, like, because he and I we were actually talking about going to like a Phillies game or something if I was actually going to be in his area, but ended up not didn't happen because I was more inland, I guess I would call it.
Can I interject on that? Tough luck, Scotty D. I got up with him first.
Or Anthony.
Or Anthony, whoever the hell it is.
Yeah, Anthony.
My brain is still trying to wake up to this damn coffee.
So Anthony, sorry we missed you. I guess it would have been great to get his load, and we could have shown me like a really good place for Philly cheesesteaks, or go to a Phillies game or something, or I don't know, might be able to maybe do something like that when the Eagles are playing, and go to an Eagles game or something. That'd be great.
You're talking about me going with you?
Anthony, but
oh, never mind. Okay, sorry. My mind was off in Lulu La La Land.
His mind's always in the gutter too, like mine. So that's another reason why we get along.
Yes.
We better shut up there.
Yeah, we better shut up, because we liable to expose people to things that they don't need to be exposed to.
not to mention that, but it's just after 2108 now local time. We were both already talking about getting, doing our prep stuff to roll about 9:30, which is 20 minutes from now. So I'm gonna go ahead and call this video a day. I don't want to have this one too long, but we'll have again another video of my pickup, and I'll talk some more about what he and I are both, because he and I are both going to the same shipper, and we'll talk some more on there. Okay. So all right, hope you guys enjoyed. Appreciate you guys hanging out and watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the meetup with Dave, or David, as sometimes I call you Dave, sometimes I call you David, I notice.
Yeah, and other times you call me asshole or bitch.
Yeah, or bitch ass.
Hey, that's another one.
Okay, so speaking of that real quick, we have a group chat with I call our Scotty D clique, as I call it on Facebook. Now, like basically all of Scotty D's friends who are also friends of me, we're in like this chat group on Facebook, and you can put nicknames for people on there. Guess what the guys in there nicknamed me? Bitch ass. Because I would say it a lot. I got that from my friend Sean, who I tried to meet up with there, who lives right there in Carlisle, where I did my 34, and I didn't get a chance to meet up with him, but he would always say that too, and it just kind of became a thing where we just call each other bitch ass for fun, and so I would call my other friends that for fun. And all right, anyway, let's quit the ramble. We'll get this footage off of here and prepared, and then we'll get rolling here as soon as we can here. Okay. All right. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys on the next one.
You have a good night, or whatever it is for y'all.
Peace.